We'll get started if you're standing. Mr. Dent, please,
Father in heaven, we thank you right now for another opportunity to call on thy name and to serve. We bless your name because your name worthy to be blessed. We do ask you for forgiveness of our sin as we forgive those that sin against us. We thank you. Father, we bless you now. We thank you for your living and your dying and your rising on the third day that we might have a right to the tree of life. And we thank you. Father, we pray for this country. We pray for this world. We pray for the troubles of this world right now in a special way. Father, those that walk the streets all night long, those that dodge bullets, all kind of trouble all night long, and every day of their life right now. We pray a special blessing upon them. Then we ask you to help us and guide us now, that we make the best decision for ourselves. We do ask this in Jesus' name. With that we say, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
welcome everyone to this meeting, Monday, May the 1st, 2023, 6 p.m. We have a conference line set up. The number there is 917-900-1022. Access code will be 32347#. This is not a toll-free number. You may be subject to long-distance charges according to your long-distance plan. When the chairperson opens the meeting for public comment, please follow below instructions. If you wish to speak, please dial *5. The moderator will unmute your line when it is your turn to speak and notify you by announcing the last 4 digits of your telephone number. Please announce your name and address. You will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the board regarding an agenda item will be given 3 minutes for comment. A commenter may only speak 1 time for each agenda item. And that said, we'll move to number 3, approval of the agenda.
I move.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We've got consent items. Everyone had a chance to look over the consent items. Any discussion? We have an approval for our consent items.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve consent. We have a second. A second. All in favor? Aye. Item number 10, bids public hearing. The board will hold a public hearing set for this date at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible on the passage of the proposed ordinance to amend the section 42 through 82 of the Taylor County Code. We want to read by
Title only. Did we read the title on this, Mr. Bishop?
You can do that if you make a motion, have a second, and vote for it.
motion to read by title only. We have a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
As y'all know, it's been changed a little bit, and y'all gotten a copy of that when we talked about the term limits. An ordinance of the Board of County Commission of Taylor County, Florida, which amends section 42-82 of the Taylor County Code, LDC 11.03.02, 11.03.03, which reduces the number of members of the planning board from 7 members to 5 members, removal from office, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. So essentially, it's changing it from 7 members to 5 members.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. We'll open it up to the public. Anyone on the public? Have anyone on the line? Close to the public. We need a motion to approve the.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
It was.
And then a roll call.
Roll call. Second, so roll call.
Right, I'll call it. Commissioner Fegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Dent?
Yes.
Commissioner England?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Moody?
Yes.
Well, y'all got a new ordinance.
Right. Board to hold a public hearing. Board to hold a public hearing set for this date at 6:05 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible in the passage of the proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 2009-08. Read the ordinance by title only. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Have a motion, by Commissioner Fegel to read by title only. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, this is the ordinance on golf carts.
Let me give you the right one. This is the ad valorem tax exemption ordinance.
Oh. I didn't see that. But I did it, didn't I? Okay.
And that one will be item 14,
Oh,
the golf carts.
okay.
So this is,
I don't think I have an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Taylor County, Florida, amending ordinance number 2009-08, Taylor County Code, Article Roman numeral 2, Section 70.31, sequence, which provides that an eligible business which has received an economic development ad valorem tax exemption fails to pay its ad valorem taxes for a whole year may terminate said exemption by the passage of an ordinance repealing said exemption, providing severability and providing an effective date.
This is a public hearing, so we'd like to open this up to the public. Anyone from the public like to speak? Anyone on the line? No one, no. All right. We'll close public hearing. We have a motion to pass this.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Roll call. It's a roll call too. And I did that in the back. Commissioner Fegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Dent?
Yes.
Commissioner English?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
And Commissioner Moody?
All right. Constitutional officer of the governmental unit. The board to consider approval of interlocal agreement, OFR county property use by the Tennessee County Sheriff's Office for training, as agendaed by John Luke, emergency management.
How y'all?
Are you good?
Are there any questions, on the agreement or?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
How often do you think y'all will use this and for what duration of time?
Well, originally it was set up for the Wilderness Search and Rescue Team, and, the trainings will be held at least quarterly. And then, that will follow through with, with other department needs, I guess, as it will go on, but, as in the agreement, all the training will be scheduled and, with, certain timeframes, of course, that we couldn't, I guess, I think it's for the palmetto, berry season or something like that.
Or do you think it'll be days or weeks for the training?
Oh, no, ma'am, it'll just be, like
One
we
day or
scheduled
seven?
that. Yes, ma'am, it's a matter of hours.
Mr. Chairman?
I'd say, if there's no other discussion, I'd make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor? Board to consider approval of request to install a 30-foot, not 50-foot steel building next to the Emergency Operations Center as agenda by the Emergency Management Director. John Wood.
So this building, we're seeking, permission to place the building next to the EOC. As you know, last year I had a 30 by 50 foot building, put on the property to serve as an emergency management warehouse to put emergency supplies and such. At this point in time, the sheriff's office, is getting very limited as far as evidence storage and, we're wanting to purchase the building, put it there so evidence can be, better served, organized better, a more secure area. At this time, we're having to put evidence in different locations and obviously, you want to keep that, in one location. So that's pretty much what it's all about.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion to approve, we got a second?
Second.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, sir. County Attorney items, the board to review draft ordinance and notice allowing golf carts on all county maintained roads in King Hatchie with a speed limit of 25 miles per hour or less.
This hasn't been advertised, or has it been advertised?
No, sir, it
Okay,
has
y'all
not been
can look at
advertised.
it and see if y'all want to advertise this.
I make a motion to advertise it.
Second?
We have a motion to advertise and we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No for me.
County attorney to discuss Root versus Taylor County.
This is hopefully the, last thing hopefully we have to do in the Root case. And it was that we did negotiate the attorney's fees and costs in this matter. What the attorney for the Roots was requesting was something really close to 40,000 as to attorney's fees and costs, which are deposition costs and expert witness costs of about 4,000. And I thought that was too much, and so we were able to get him down to attorney's fees of $29,400 and cost of $41,498. So there's this, it's a lot of money, but it's a savings of over $10,000, around $10,000. So we need, if y'all are in agreement with it, we need your approval to finish up the agreement and get this case finished.
I'll make a motion, get it behind us and do it.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Can I go back and, there's a couple of things that I'd like to say about item number 14. Would that be appropriate at this time?
Everyone okay?
You certainly have the right to discuss it. It's passed, but you certainly have the right to.
So this ordinance hasn't been passed.
Yeah, you have, go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
It's,
I'll get back from Germany.
So,
Go ahead.
okay. I would just be remiss if I didn't say something, and, I realize that Steinhatchee is a golf cart community, and it should be a golf cart community. I have no problem with that. The deal is that you've got some people down there that want to be able to drop their golf cart to the roll-off side, which is down a highway. Now, the way it is now with the golf carts, in my opinion, they're inside of Steinhatchee, and that's streets, and the traffic is moving slower, and I think it's a safer environment. But they're asking us to change the speed on a highway, not a street, but on a highway, so that they can drive their golf carts to the roll-off. And this is a few people that want to do that. They can take their trucks, in my opinion, or cars, and continue to take their garbage they've been taking it, and use their golf carts inside the community where it's a safer environment. I know that a lot of people speed coming down that road or going out. A lot of people are drinking or have been drinking. And I am so fearful that you're gonna have a slow-moving golf cart. Either, like you said, there's a bunch of young'uns on it, or some elderly people, or whoever. And I think that it's just an accident waiting to happen. And a golf cart cannot stand up to a truck or a car. We already know that. We've seen fatalities here with golf carts and vehicles. So I just think that we need to be very careful before we pass this ordinance allowing these golf carts to get out on a highway and endanger the public. Number one, I think it's going to endanger the public. Number two, I think that it will be a liability for us and probably have litigation over it at some point in time. But the main thing that I'm concerned about is our public safety. Once we do this, if it's done, then you open up every other road in Taylor County, you might as well say. They're gonna want the highway at Keaton Beach, which is a highway. They're gonna want it, and they've already asked us to do that. I don't have a problem there with golf carts, as long as they're down where the traffic is moving slower, but when you ask us to change the speed limit on a highway, I think that's asking too much of us. And then what's to say? I've had citizens in my district to ask me about letting them drive golf carts on some of the county roads. So I think that you open up Pandora's box. Once you do this, you're gonna have people up here all the time wanting us to change the speed limit and allow them to have their golf carts on highways. And again, I'm not against golf carts and golf cart communities, but I don't think it's the right thing to do to open up a highway and us change the speed limit to allow such a dangerous situation. I just couldn't let the speeding go by without saying that. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that, Mr. Chairman, and I think it's very clear that we heard from the public. I think there were over 18 letters that were read there, is that correct?
There were 18, yes, sir.
So we had 18 letters, and we had a number of folks from the public, from Steinhatchee, who have this need. This is, not just something that's been on a whim, but we heard very clearly. We had these number of folks that came out that demonstrated the needs, and they're continuing to do that down over the weekend. And the counters, I believe, are in place for what we said we're going to do. So I just say, as much as we consider in respect to Beach Road and the use was demonstrated by all the folks that came here. So to throw all that out and just say we're just going to look at public safety, we can put that Band-Aid on any kind of concept to try to not look at the point, look at the need, and look at what's going on there with the growth in Steinhatchee. So to consider otherwise, in my mind, is not wise. It's not serving the needs of the people who came up and spoke. They took their time. They sent letters. They've demonstrated in numerous ways what those needs are and the uses that are going on there. So to ignore all the needs of the people at this point in time, I think is ridiculous. And I think we made the right decision to advertise it, and I'll be more than glad to see these folks in the public hearing, to see that we do the right thing and allow these folks the right to use this roadway for golf cart usage, so they have the opportunity to take off their trash. Some of these folks don't have vehicles, and that's their only means for communication, for transportation. So in respect to the speed and in respect to the law, I've spoken to the sheriff's department, and they understand what the need is there, and they also understand that they have the ability to enforce the law, which, by the way, is what they're sworn to do. And what I'm willing and more than glad to allow them to do when we do the right thing and understand and listen to the needs and the desires of the people, and that we follow through on what those are currently.
Mr. Chair, let's be clear, and let's differentiate between a need and a want. Okay, and I would venture to say that this is a want, not a need. And I don't think that 18 letters and a few people here is very much of a sampling of the population. That is a very low number. If you're trying to say that that's a lot of people and a lot of representation, it's not. So that's all I have to say about it.
Well, let me just follow up on that. And so what I'd say is, we heard from people that are living in Steve Hatchie. We heard from people that are continually having needs to be able to access the roll-off site. They want to do so legally. And this board should see fit to lower the speed limit so that they can do that with their golf carts. And they said that very clearly. And so what I would say there is, it's just because it's your opinion does not mean that's the exact situation for the needs that are going on in the community. And those are the folks that I continue to be in contact with. And those are the folks I'm going to continue to represent. So I'll be looking forward to when this gets advertised and for that meeting to be taking place.
So let me, if I can, just to kind of separate some of that. I as well.
Kenneth, do you mind to come up, please?
Sure.
Is that okay? So I can hear.
Because it caught my attention when you described it as a need versus a matter of convenience.
Sorry.
Because that is, as you said, kind of my perception or my opinion is that we know that for years and years and years and years that solid waste facility has been there.
Sure.
With the current posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour, there is no legal right, another word that you used, for these citizens to use anything other than authorized vehicles on that roadway.
But if the ordinance is changed, it will be.
Yeah, I wasn't finished.
Right.
So we have been collecting speed down there.
Sure.
We've done it in a couple of locations. You're seeing speed limits now with posted 35 mile per hour speed limits. The vehicles are running 47. That's the 85th percentile, which is typically what we post things at. What you're suggesting is that it is acceptable to put a vehicle, for lack of a better word, that has a speed threshold of 20 miles per hour out on a roadway where you're going to have a disparity of nearly 30 miles per hour of a vehicle approaching that and passing by it. This has been shown that it's not a safe situation. That's why we have, within the context of the urbanized area in Steve Hatchie, is we see a huge usage, acceptable or not, on those areas, specifically First Avenue North. And to recognize how some of the characteristics have varied over the years, it seems more plausible to adjust within those urban areas to force a safer environment. When you try to impose that same methodology out on the, and I'll use your word, highway, what you're going to wind up doing is you're going to promote intolerance to those regulatory speeds. You're going to put a speed sign out there that's going to show 25 miles per hour. And what you're asking is, I took and just kind of measured from the end of what's termed Second Avenue, or excuse me, Second Street, where it ends at the original Steinhatchee subdivision. From there out to the roll-off site is literally just a hair under a mile. You're not going to get individuals in vehicles to sustain a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit for that length of time, when geometrically and congestion-wise, it has the characteristics of an open highway. It's just not gonna happen. And then unfortunately, you're gonna wind up, which I hope it never happens, but it is much more probable when you have those higher speeds and the lower golf cart speed in the same environment, is that it's gonna be a matter of when it happens, not if it happens. And I think that's what she is trying to convey, is a concern. I have a similar concern. I'm trying to be the least combative as I can in this, because I do look at it as a safety issue, a primarily safety issue. I went through and then doing the design on the First Avenue down there, you see that congestion and you know they're getting in the roads, and I see those vehicles and how fast they're traveling. Steinhatchee has congested and grown to the point that within that metropolis area, it needs to be slowed down. And that's why we suggested it across all county maintained roads that have speeds that are above that 25 mile per hour. So just think about it. I know you said there was individuals here and there were some letters that were presented. Think about that as, you are hearing requests, you are hearing preferences, and of course you're hearing opinions. So look at that in the context of the precedent that may be set going forward and the safety implications. That's all I'm suggesting.
I certainly do, and so isn't it safer to say, if those folks are using those roadways, that by lowering that speed limit, you're moving towards a safer existence for both those vehicles?
So if I started driving my golf cart out on US 19, am I gonna use that as justification for DOT to reduce that speed limit because I'm out there?
So you're talking about a 4-lane highway, and we're talking about Beach Road, and we're talking about areas where
I'm
it's
sorry.
65.
I'm sorry,
This
221,
is,
US 221, US 98. So
but again, this isn't a US highway, this is a county road.
It is a
And
major.
so it's a county road also, in the midst of where there's expansion and growth, and where this need continues to arise. So what I'm trying to say here is, it's not just First Avenue where there's growth and where there's that usage. And these folks have demonstrated that clearly. And that's why I'm saying that we're moving in the right direction there. If there's areas on 221, that's maintained by the state of Florida. We understand what that is. That's not what this is.
Look under where it says presentations or PowerPoints for the agendas.
Well, you got something to say?
I do, this is a
At
slightly,
least one.
yeah, give her just a minute to turn everything on. Kenneth, before we depart from this conversation and to give her a minute to pull all this up, I'd also like to make sure we have an understanding about any expectation for golf carts to yield to vehicles, because I know that's something that's been maybe discussed. If the public's perception is, or if the understanding is that the golf carts should yield to vehicles.
I think that's in the current ordinance, and that is the expectation, and that's why we discussed the signs to remind those users to move over so that it didn't cause a traffic jam or cause a buildup behind those vehicles. So that's why, and I was saying that under the pretext or understanding that, when folks see traffic building up, they can move over. And we have discussed signs to remind them to do that. And all of these are parts of the existing ordinance as it is the golf cart traffic.
Yes, there is a statement in the existing ordinance that encourages golf carts to yield to vehicles when they perceive there is a situation of congestion.
And I've also spoken with respect to that to law enforcement about that same issue. And for those folks that refuse to go by that guidance, they can be ticketed for doing that, for the obstruction. And so that's why I'm saying the consideration is in respect to the needs that have been demonstrated. These folks have clearly demonstrated what's going on there. And so this isn't the only folk, this is not the only group of folks. There's a large number of folks that did not make the trip up here.
Understood, and I,
But, hold on, before we move on to that. My question is if we lower, is that going to cause an issue if we lower the speed limit to 25 miles per hour? Is there room,
just click it.
Kenneth, for golf carts to actually get out of the way?
The only room that they would have would be the unimproved shoulders. We do not have paved shoulders down there on that roadway, on First Avenue.
Do you think that will
Or
cause?
any of it, as a matter of fact, except for State Road 51, and I think it has five foot, but they shouldn't be on 51 to begin with.
Be there legally. So,
Is that going to cause an issue if we start putting up signs that basically state that, is there room for golf carts to actually get off the road?
As I said, there is an unimproved shoulder, a grass shoulder,
Okay.
that they would have to get out of the travel lane sufficiently to where the vehicle could go past, or vehicles, presumably, since there's congestion, could go past them.
Is that reasonable in that particular area on Beach Road?
Is it reasonable? Remember, we're doing First Avenue and not Beach Road, and some of those shoulders are not quite as gracious as the First Avenues will be with some of the ditches and the marsh areas that are adjacent to it. So there are probably areas that you would say are of a concern and other areas that are not a concern. But just to say it unilaterally, I wouldn't do that.
in respect to the location of the intersections, wouldn't that be a fair place that there's not oncoming traffic? If there was a buildup, that those golf carts could merge over into the intersection safely to allow the traffic to pass by? It's what I've seen happen, so I just assume that's.
Okay, so, and using that concept, when you get out past Steinhatchee Acres subdivision and Roy's Road, where is it that you're going to get off? Because
There's marshland there.
There's actually 6/10 of a mile from there to the roll-off site.
How wide is that shoulder? That's not marshland, that's really in the sandhill.
There are high areas and low areas. I see vegetation that is suggestive of a low area, and there are a couple of hills that are there.
Sure. But those areas would be practical, that folks could move over and let the few cars go by.
Certainly, sir, and we could just say that we'll let them go 0.59 miles and then get off just before the roll-off site. So we can discuss this, or we can argue about it, one of the two. But what you used as justification was a growing congested area and this need that people have to go from one location to another. You don't have that where you're trying to demonstrate that. So you're perceiving that there's some congested, developed area that's along this route that you're trying to gain access to, that last point of destination being the roll-off site. That congestion is not there. There is no development there that is bringing that Steinhatchee community to that location.
Okay. So there's not, what you're saying is from the area, from the roll-off site to where those yellow lines stop there on this particular screen, that there's obviously not homes being built in some of those places. But what I'm saying is the development I see there, the RV sites that are going in there that are on that side of town are gonna put users on that roadway, and it's gonna increase the volume. And it's even in the sense of the recent block that was sold that's currently being developed for RV use is gonna put that many more users on those roadways. And those were some of the things in the statements that were made here the other night when those residents were saying, we see those folks, they're our neighbors. That's the only transportation they have. That's the only transportation they plan to have, because it's a golf cart community. It's easier to get around down there. It doesn't cause more vehicles in the sense of trucks and cars and things of that nature, and they can easily move over or move to the side and pass and repass in a peaceful fashion. And not just that, it's not just the issue of them moving around town, but they also have trash, they generate trash. And that's the way that they tend to use and are planning to use as far as access to the runoff site. So it's not to say that there's a huge metropolis and the size of Steinhatchee on Beach Road is fixing to explode. It's to demonstrate the fact that if you look at all those places, the developments can continue to go on there. And it's not just limited to one area or one region. And all of that is bringing more users to the system.
And we could make that same statement or argument about south of town, west of town, east of town, north of town. Anywhere that you have development, you could use that same logic to demonstrate that it is appropriate then to use those means of, those roads as a means of access. And that's, please don't take this wrong, but I believe there is a very easy opportunity to confuse wants, personal preferences, and convenience with a need.
Well, I'll tell you this way, and I don't believe I'm confused about it. I heard exactly what these people said that were here, those that brought me to send their letters, and I wasn't confused one bit. I understand the message they're conveying, and I've had other conversations with those folks in person, and I can promise you, I wasn't confused. I heard very clearly what their need is, and that's what I'm here to represent. And that's the reason I support it being advertised, and I continue to do so.
And that's, I don't take that away from you, and I would be surprised if there is a large percentage or population in that area that has that same need as you defined it.
So can I just say that, I don't think, all of our, I'm just gonna refer to our beach communities, our Steinhatchee, Keaton Beach, maybe even Deeper Beach, they're all growing and more people go to all these areas each year. And just referring to Steinhatchee, these folks are using, they're driving their golf cart down there today, and it's illegal and it's not being enforced. So, by us reducing this speed limit down to, just say 25 miles per hour, we're almost creating the same environment as we have at Keaton Beach, because I know we said at this board several times, and we discussed vehicles coming into Keaton Beach where that speed limit reduces down dramatically to 25 miles an hour, and they're probably still running 45 and 50 miles an hour where golf carts can drive through there. So I don't by no means think and feel that, that this board, wishes any kind of accident or anything to happen, or would think any kind of, it could happen regardless, but I think we're creating the same environment in Steinhatchee in this little stretch as we already have at Keaton Beach, that we already sat here and talked about the speed that people are traveling coming into Keaton Beach at that dramatic drop to 25 miles an hour, and folks can drive golf carts through there. So by putting this at 25 miles per hour, doesn't it do somewhat kind of let people be more mindful that to slow down and watch out for the golf carts?
Well, I would say that your reference to Keaton Beach is a good one. And if you recall, the current request is to move it further away from the community, the reduced speed area.
Right.
But what we are seeing is that, very much like everyone else is expecting, people are not slowing down. So it is a concern anytime there's a huge disparity between vehicles that are on the road versus the other pieces of equipment that people travel on that are on the road. There is an opportunity for there to be a conflict. I've seen it. I've seen it at Cedar Island entrance. One just out there on the road, turned around, they got whacked. And, it's a very unfortunate conclusion that happens. And that's not to say that it doesn't happen and it wouldn't happen right in front of Maddie's Market. But in those areas, you have a congested, urbanized area, whereas the general tenor of the vehicles is a slower pace. You're not going to see that out on these higher speed roadways. And I would hope that the next progression in Keaton Beach doesn't extend all the way up to Leisure Retreats. There's huge development there. They'd like to go to the beach. So is 1 mile enough? Is 2 miles enough? It is just a little bit concerning when we get into these open roadway scenarios, that it hasn't been done in the past because it's probably not the right thing to do. So I appreciate your comments, and I did have some responses to some of yours, and I feel remiss if we don't get up here and at least consider all aspects of it, whether it is a need or it is a preference. Think about it from a safety standpoint and what that next request that comes up here, where is it gonna be, and how are you gonna justify saying no to them when it could very easily be just a little bit different than what you just approved? It's gonna be tough.
Mr. Chair, I get calls all the time on many roads about speeders. And I'm talking about where the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. And I've had some of them that call me and say, even the school bus speeds by here. And I've talked to the sheriff, I've talked to the highway patrol, and I do believe that they do all they can. But they don't have enough of deputies that can sit on all these roads and make sure that these people slow down. So they're gonna keep speeding. They can go out there, they can catch a few, but as soon as they leave, they're gonna speed again. Another case in point. Come to our little house down at Keaton Beach and sit on the porch and watch the cars that fly by there, where you've got children walking, other people walking, people on bicycles. You cannot stop it. You cannot stop it. That speed limit sign means absolutely nothing. And, you know, we can sit here and we can play with words all night long. You know, we can say, well, that's a state highway, or that's a federal highway, or that's a county highway, or this is a need, or this is a want. But we're obligated to protect the public. And I will say again, the few people that's representative of Steinhatchee is not a valid representation. That's a few people. Somehow or another, up until now, they've been able to get their garbage. I would dare say it's probably not piled outside the road for all these years, but they haven't had a vehicle to get their garbage. Somehow or another, they've got the garbage to the roll-off. So, you know, we can argue all night, but the thing is, we've got to use common sense. And common sense says that we don't need to change a speed limit that we know cannot be enforced and put the public in a dangerous situation.
That's a question. Do you know that speed limit can't be enforced?
Say again?
Do you know that
Yes, I
speed
do.
limit?
I sure do, because I've had enough calls from my district, and I've sat
But
on
they
my
said in your
porch.
district.
I've sat on my porch at Keaton Beach, which is your district.
That's right. Thank you.
So I would say this,
Well, I got another thing to say. I have spoken with law enforcement about that, and they understand what the suggestion is. And they are in support and understanding that they can do the job they've been sworn and hired to do. And guess what? I trust that. And I also understand that it wasn't just my desire or figment of my imagination when all these folks and all their letters showed up. And that's the job that I'm called to do. So is it a tough position? It sure is. That's the job I got hired to do. That's the job I'm going to do. In respect to the law enforcement folks, I'm going to trust them to do the job that they swear in to do. I've got that kind of faith. I also understand when it comes down to these folks that have these needs, that have only limited transportation and have the need for using this strip of roadway when it comes up, that it needs to be more than just considered. We need to listen to what the people are saying. They're not saying this from afar. They're not saying this just by calling in. They said this by showing up, by writing letters, and by signing them, by being seen and being heard. And I heard what they said, and I'm in agreement with what they said. And I am going to support what they said, 100%. Appreciate everybody's comments.
Mr. Chairperson, just one final comment. I mean, this is why we are gathering data as far as the speed counts. That will really give insight to the board of the speed people are traveling, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll have that for the public hearing.
Thank you. All right, moving on 14, we'll move on down, county administrator items, county administrator's information items.
Just a quick item, I wanted to remind the board that there is another USFA softball tournament scheduled for Saturday at the sports complex. As of now, I believe there are 14 12U teams scheduled, as we are providing the fields for overflow from a Tallahassee tournament, I believe. We will provide concessions and have at least one food truck scheduled for the event. So we're looking forward, the weather looks good, we're looking forward to another successful event. May not be quite as large as the last one, I think there were 16 teams the last time. And there is also a tournament scheduled as of now for June 10th. So after that, we're hoping to receive a schedule from our friends at USFA hopefully for the remainder of the year.
I'll kick off a new season in August for the fall. So those schedules are probably being made now, and they should, probably, I would see probably more frequency now that we had one tournament there and it was a big success and everyone, really was impressed with our complex. So, we will, I think they want to be more frequent coming into the fall and, moving right along, I guess.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
Comments and concerns from the public or non-agenda items. Come on, Mark.
Mark Viola, 3384 Slaughter Road, and since I live on Slaughter Road, I'm in the middle of a construction zone right now. It's quite a situation to be in, but I look forward to a wider road, because I'm tired of hitting the grass every time a dually drives the opposite direction. I get to work a lot earlier now to make sure I get out before they start closing the roads and such. There's no complaints against them, but this is more just a question on whether this usually happens when y'all redo roads. It's not exactly know. I got a letter from the post office last week saying that my road is now unsafe for their driver and they will be canceling my mail service until the construction is over. I have to go to the post office to get the mail. I'm assuming everyone on Slaughter Road got that.
So, it has happened similarly in the past. It is usually kind of a reaction of the rural route carrier to the proper placement of mailboxes relative to the roadway. I have already authorized with the postmaster on the correct placement. So if you will be willing to scan that and send it to me, I will forward it to the postmaster, because there were previous comments from the rural route carrier out there that if the contractor could go ahead and move the mailboxes, and as soon as they're gone, they're going to put them where they want them. And if they can't get to them with left-hand delivery, they're going to make the people go to the post office to get their mail. I notified the postmaster of that. She said that, I think it's a she, I'm pretty sure, that she would address it with them. So send it to me and I will try to get it resolved. It's not something that's coming from the postmaster, it's coming from the rural route carrier. Well, who's the name on it?
It's postmaster.
It says Ramon? Okay, I will send it to me and I will make sure that it gets taken care of.
I do know I can actually, my mailbox faces away from the road, so I guess that's the left-handed side. I can still check my mailbox, although I haven't checked it since Wednesday when I got my letter.
There is a postal requirement as well as a state standard on the direction it's supposed to be. We are gracious in that if there's not an identified ditch behind the mailbox, we will turn it away from the road where the rural route carriers can go around it. If there is a discernible ditch on the backside, then they have to face the road, which means right-hand delivery, which they typically get displeased with.
Yeah, I fortunately live, I think, on the highest point, so I don't even have a culvert underneath my driveway. It's pretty flat.
Anywhere we can turn them for left-hand delivery, we do, to minimize the impact.
I had to put a new mailbox in recently. I didn't even put cement in it because I knew probably going to have to get moved with construction coming, so it should be able to.
There is a federal guideline on where we're supposed to put it. And that's
I
where,
was, like I said, I was curious.
More informational items, Mr. Pickens.
Yeah. I want to say thank you to you and to Luanda and the rest of the staff that has worked so hard and so long to get these tournaments in place. You know, we've waited a long time for this, and I'm just so happy that the last one was so successful, and all the nice things that other communities said about our sports complex. It just makes me so proud that, that we have such a facility and that we're able to have these tournaments. And, I want to say that I'm very honored and blessed to be able to be in this position and represent the people. I just pray that one day that we can discuss issues without getting angry and getting loud, that we can discuss them in a civil manner. I'm glad God gave me a little bit of common sense. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
I just appreciate staff doing what they do. I appreciate the commissioners trying to work each other. When we have any little hiccups, we just work through them. Not take it personal, move on.
That's why.
Mr. Newman.